The Montreal Canadiens 2021-22 season preview. Hey everybody, I'm Rick. Welcome to Talking Habs, where you get your daily fix of Bleu Blanc Rouge. So I'm going to go over all of the little details here in part one of this preview. I'm going to go over some stats from last year and all the little details, the lines, the personnel, and all the little things for the upcoming season. And then later on, I'm going to be joined by Matt Norton, and we're going to be discussing, trying to break down the upcoming season, how we feel about it, talking about the lines and the personnel. And yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Let's get right into it.
Examples, and that's a clear one. What they want to take out of the game is Anderson.
So we got stats from last year. Let's go over all the stuff from last year. The record last year was 24-21-11. They just squeaked into the playoffs, being fourth in the North Division. At home, they were 13-11-4. On the road, 11-10-7. They scored 159 goals.
Toffoli-Suzuki-Caufield, and Suzuki in front scores! Suzuki from Caufield!
Subscribe and ring that notifications bell. And hey, give a thumbs up. Gave up 168 goals in the playoffs. In round one, they won the first game against Toronto and then lost the next three to go down 3-1, and then proceeded to go on a bit of a tear with three straight wins to win that series 4-3 and stun the Toronto Maple Leafs. Although, should they have been stunned? It happens to them every time they're in the playoffs. Round two, they go on to face Winnipeg, and it is a 4-game sweep. Round three, where everybody wrote them off against Vegas, and they end up beating Vegas in 6 games, 4-2, and they go on to the Stanley Cup final, where they lost to Tampa Bay, sadly, 4-1. Power play opportunities, they had 151 of those. Power play goals, 29, for a percentage of 19.2%. Power play opportunities against, that's the PK, 172 of those. They gave up 37 penalty kill goals, and their PK percentage was 78.49%. Shorthanded goals, 4. They had 9 of those. Shorthanded goals against, they only gave up 2 shorthanded goals. Goals for per game, 2.82. Goals against per game, 2.95. Shots for, 1,746. Shots against, 1,579. The captain this season will be none. Shea Weber, I guess, is technically the captain. They will not replace him on the roster with a captain, although he'll be sitting out the whole season. The alternates this season will be Jeff Petry, Brendan Gallagher, and Nick Suzuki. And with the announcement this morning of the Nick Suzuki extension of 8 years, $7.875 million, which is exactly the same amount as Shea Weber's contract is, I think this points to the fact that they are going to groom Nick Suzuki to be the future captain of this team. So, hot take, and I was the guy saying Nick Suzuki would not be captain material. My new hot take is Nick Suzuki will be the future captain of this team. When they do name a captain going forward, it will be Nick Suzuki. That's my opinion. That's my hot take. The scoring leaders during the regular season for goals, 28 goals, Tyler Toffoli. Assists, 30 for Jeff Petry. And points, 44 for Tyler Toffoli. Penalty minutes, 50 for Ben Chiarot, and plus minus a plus 28 for Joel Edmundson. Time on ice, 18:49 for Ben Chiarot. In the playoffs, goals, 7, Nick Suzuki. Assists, 9, tied by Nick Suzuki and Tyler Toffoli. And points leader, 16 points, Nick Suzuki. Penalty minutes, Shea Weber, 28. Plus minus, plus 4, Shea Weber. And time on ice, 25-15, although it's not exact. 25-15 for Ben Chiarot to lead, but I put Weber there because he had 25-13. So I think that's close enough that, I put him there. Shea Weber, amazingly, with what we know happened to Shea Weber, what he was going through, still penalty minutes leader, plus minus leader, and time on ice leader. That's kind of amazing. The GM this year and for the whole year will be honored by the contract will be honored by the Montreal Canadiens, according to their PR tweet. Marc Bergevin, who we know is in a bit of a contract negotiation thing, which I think negotiations have stalled, but he's still the GM, and he made an amazing signing. It's a re-signing, I guess, contract extension to Nick Suzuki. Number was amazing. We're going to look on that contract in the next few years and go, wow, great number for a guy that's producing a lot. Head coach, Dominique Ducharme. This year, not the interim coach. His assistant coaches on defense, Luke Richardson, who did an amazing job filling in the playoffs when Dom Ducharme had COVID. So Luke Richardson. Power play, Alex Burrows. The bench coach, and I think he's the bench coach because he doesn't have a specific title, so I'm giving him bench coach, is Trevor Letowski in his first season with Montreal. The new goalie coach, who was recently hired, is Eric Raymond, and that's the coaching staff. The minor league affiliates, the Laval Rocket in the AHL, and for the first time ever in the ECHL, the Lions of Trois Rivieres, first season ever, so that's going to be exciting to see what happens with that. New players in: Christian Dvorak, David Savard, Mike Hoffman, Matthew Perreault, Cedric Paquette, Sam Montembeault, Sami Niku. Out from last year, Shea Weber, who will be out all year, may be retiring. Phil Deneau, off to LA. Thomas Tatar, who signed with New Jersey. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who was offer sheeted by the Carolina Hurricanes. The Montreal did not match. Corey Perry, who Montreal would not offer a 2-year contract, and he ended up signing with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Eric Stahl, who remains unsigned at the moment, last I checked. Goalies this year: Carey Price hopefully will be back at some point. He's on the IR. I don't know if it'll go to the LTIR, but he's on the IR, so he won't be starting the season. Jake Allen will be our starter, and Sam Montembeault will be his backup. The defensive pairings: Chiarot-Savard, Edmundson-Petry. That's when Edmundson's healthy. Right now it's Kulak and Petry, and Romanov and Wideman. Forward lines: Toffoli-Suzuki-Caufield, Drouin-Dvorak-Anderson, Hoffman-Evans-Gallagher. Now, this is not how it's going to open up the season. The season is going to open up, by the way, with Lehkonen. I think it's Lehkonen-Perreault and Paquette. But I think it'll end up after a couple of days, because Brooks I don't think is in camp yet, is Lehkonen, Brooks, and Armia once Hoffman comes back. So if that's not too confusing, but these are the forwards that are on the team, on the roster right now, and we'll see how they do eventually line up on the bottom 6. Carey Price last season, his regular season numbers were 2.64 goals against and a .901 save percentage, and not great. 901 save percentage, not great at all. The 264 is okay. In the playoffs, he upped his game for a 2.28 goals against and a .924 save percentage, and those are pretty amazing differences. Starting the season on the LTIR will be Shea Weber and Paul Byron. On the injured reserve list is Hoffman, Edmundson, and Price, and I don't think there's anybody to add to that because I did these things yesterday. And you never know. It's sometimes by the minute. Sami Niku, I guess, can be added to that. He's about to come off the list because he is there in practice, but he is still on the injured reserve. I wasn't sure if he was going to make the roster when I did that or not, so that's why he's not listed there. Let's take a look for a sec at Adam Brooks, our new center, Adam Brooks. He is from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Played 18 games with Toronto, 4 goals, 4 assists in those 18 games. Not a huge scorer, even with the Marlies, but you can see with the Regina Pats, his last 2 seasons in the WHL, some really good numbers there, 120 points, 130 points. Now, saying that, do I think he's going to put up big numbers here? No. I think Adam Brooks is basically, he's a bottom six guy, and more than likely he is your fourth line center to start the season. And we'll see. And I don't expect him to be there all season. I think instead of Ryan Poehling splitting that time with Paquette, we might see Brooks and Paquette. We might see Poehling and Paquette. We'll see which combination of which. Ryan Poehling is waiver wire exempt. So more than likely, if anybody's going down, it's going to be Poehling, because Brooks, as we know, we got him off the waiver wire. So we'd have to waive him to put him down in the AHL. So we'll see how that works out. The roster that was announced yesterday. This is the roster. Forwards: Anderson, Armia, Belzile, who was a surprise to make it, Brooks, Caufield, Drouin-Dvorak, Evans, Gallagher, Lehkonen, Paquette-Perreault, Poehling, Suzuki, and Toffoli. On defense: Chiarot, Kulak, Petry, Romanov-Savard, and Wideman. They are starting the season, for all intents and purposes, with 6 defensemen going into Toronto. That may change Wednesday. They may put somebody down and bring up a defenseman. So it could change. Niku could be ready, and you could see somebody like a Poehling be sent down. And the goaltenders will be Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault. So let's look at the practice lines today. So that we know this is probably the lineup that is going to start tomorrow against the Leafs. Toffoli-Suzuki-Caufield for line 1. Drouin-Dvorak-Anderson are line 2. Armia, Evans, and Gallagher for line 3. And Lehkonen, Matthew Perreault, and Cedric Paquette are line 4. And the spares in practice are Ryan Poehling and Alex Belzile on the defense. Kulak paired with Petry. Chiarot paired with Savard, and Romanov paired with Wideman, with Niku as the extra, and Allen and Montembeault in nets. That's probably the lineup. Usually the practice lineup on the day before they break camp and start the season is the lineup. And quite frankly, I think the breaking camp things happen, and that's the practice lineup first day before their first game. So that's the stats part of this video. I'm going to be joined right now by Matt Norton.
And we know how slick he is at passing it. Oh, finds the triangle for Montreal. And sometimes you get the defenseman staying in back.
Subscribe and ring that notifications bell. And hey, give a thumbs up. We want you to become a member of Talking Habs. Hey, Matt, how's it going? Say hi to everybody.
How's everyone doing?
So let's take a look at the players that are newly arrived and the guys that left the team, and a quick second or two talk about them. So in is Dvorak-Savard, Hoffman, Perreault, Paquette, Montembeault, and Niku. And it looks like Niku will be probably number 7 defenseman. What do you think of that group, Matt?
Well, obviously now too you have to add Adam Brooks, but it's not bad. I think it definitely addresses needs that we had. Kind of stinks that Hoffman and Paquette are hurt right now. But other than that, I don't think it's terrible. Obviously, the biggest loss I see on the other side of that is Shea Weber.
Yes.
And if anything, for his leadership in the room.
So on the outside is Weber, Deneau, Tatar, Kotkaniemi, because I don't think I'm going to call him KK anymore. He's not here. Perry and Stahl. Did I miss anybody? So I think I agree with you on Weber. Weber's the big loss here. Deneau could be a big loss. We'll have to see how. You know what? I'm confident that Suzuki's going to be a little better in the dot. Dvorak, we know, should come as advertised, good in the dot, and I think that'll make up for Deneau. But it could be a big loss. Tatar, yeah, I think Hoffman makes up for what Tatar. I love Tatar, believe me, but Hoffman makes up for Tatar. I think that's fine. KK, Dvorak will make us not forget KK necessarily, but I think his numbers are going to be just fine. I don't think we're going to miss KK in that way. Perry, well, there's some leadership, and I'm sorry to see Perry go. Right, Perry's
right. Yeah, no, I love Corey Perry. He's been one of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah, I think we're all sorry to see him go. And then Stahl, I either here or there.
Yeah.
Stuff. So as far as the in players and the out players, I think we're okay. We lost a little bit in Weber. Other than that, I think, like you said, I think they replaced the parts they needed to replace.
Right, and we added scoring, which was huge. Which is
right?
What we lacked,
and some really good depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, to fill in a game or two here because the guy's injured. We got some guys that can be brought in and mix and match, and I think we got some good depth. Today, Nick Suzuki put pen to paper and signed a brand new contract, keeping him in Montreal for 8 more years after this one. So it's a $63 million contract extension with an annual average value of $7.875 million. And on that number, Matt pointed this out to me because I didn't realize it. And if you watch the Hockey Guys video, he doesn't say anything about it either. But $7.875 million is the exact number on the Shea Weber contract as well. So I think that's really interesting. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. As I said earlier, and let's see if Matt agrees, I think Nick Suzuki will be the next captain of this Canadiens team. And I think that's one of those little, like, Easter egg things to signal that's going to be what happens. What do you think about that, Matt?
I think maybe not this year, because obviously they're not naming
not this year. They announced
I think he definitely could. I think he's got the tools, and I think he really is only going to get better. Yeah. You know, from what we've seen of him, I mean, last year he had an 82-game season. He would have added 20 points on his total in his rookie season. He adds another 20 points to that. I mean, the sky's the limit for him, and the fact that we were able to lock him up for under $8 million with the way that the market is right now for young talent, especially centers.
Yeah,
I think it's phenomenal, and the fact that he signed this so quickly and that he agreed to the term to being here for 8 years tells me that he wants to play in Montreal. He wants the team to build around him.
And another thing, I think they've talked to him about being captain. It's another incentive, right? And think about it. He'll only be 30 years old when the contract ends. 30. He's still going to be a young guy. We'll get him
Smack
again.
In the middle of his prime.
And we're going to get all of his best years. Well, maybe if he doesn't re-sign, maybe not all of his best years, but we're going to get most of his best years guaranteed right now. And he'll re-sign. So, I mean, that's just awesome news to lock down a player like Nick Suzuki, and you don't have to worry about the offer sheet next year and all of that. So that's really good news. And I'm sure everybody out there is really happy about that. Now we're going to talk about another new player here in Montreal, and Montreal Canadiens took from the waiver wire from the Toronto Maple Leafs, no less. I hope I call him by the right name. Adam Brooks. He is a center, a little bit on the small side. He is a bottom six kind of guy. Hasn't played a lot in the NHL, but it's a good addition, a good depth addition. What do you think about that, Matt? About Adam Brooks coming in?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's just another really good depth move if someone gets hurt. I think he's decent. He's decent in the dot. He can pot a goal here or there, but he's good depth. And you really can never have too much of that. Just with the way the roster's looking, I mean, it looks like we get a plethora of depth, which is always good. You can never have depth.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, you look at him and say, okay, he's a fourth line center. But, for a depth player, a game or two, if you need a center on, maybe Evans is hurt for a game or two. I'm not, knock wood that doesn't happen. But, here's a guy that can play that game or two on the third line and give you decent, a decent game, But yeah, I think it's a really good depth move. And you know what else I like about it? It's a bit of to Toronto, and I like that.
I love it.
Sorry, just gonna like that. Sorry, I'm not sorry about that. I'm not sorry. I'm not. Subscribe and ring that notifications bell, and hey, give a thumbs up. Okay, let's talk quickly about what went wrong in the regular season last season. Montreal did not have a very good regular season. They had a 24, 21, and 11 record, and they backed their way into the playoffs. Thank God they were in a weak division, you want to say. I don't know if that was a weak division, but thank God that there were, I guess the bottom part of that division was weak. And I guess you could say Montreal included because they were just a hair above the rest of the guys. So what went wrong, you think, to cause that?
So I think the big thing, like we kind of touched on when we're looking at players coming in, is goal scoring. Second half of the season disappeared. Absolutely disappeared. The power play was atrocious. We just couldn't find the back of the net. And, bringing in guys like Hoffman, a guy like Dvorak to play in that second line with Drouin, with the chemistry that we saw in the preseason, I think the goal scoring is going to be much better. To me, that was the big thing. I think maybe some injuries too. There were some injuries, but I think it was just the goal scoring. We just couldn't score a damn goal.
It's important what you just said, right? Because injuries did have an effect, right? And then what did we just say about the depth? We got an abundance of depth. Put 2 and 2 together, right? It's learning from what happened last season.
Right.
They don't want that to happen again. And so any question of, or people saying all these signings, all this depth, it's bottom 6 type depth. It's typical Bergevin. But you know what? If we would have had this abundance of depth last year, I dare say we would have won a few more games. It wouldn't have been a difference of being from 4th to 3rd, I don't think even, but we would have won a few more games. We wouldn't have backed in the same way. So, yeah, you can kind of tie those two things together and see why they went that way. So it's a good thing what you said there.
Right, absolutely. And not even just on the NHL roster too, but when I look at Laval, I look at guys like Pizzetta, a guy like maybe even Harvey Pinard, who, in case we get into injury trouble, I think they can be called. I think on the back end, actually, can they? I don't even know if they can call Caden Gooley up from. They sent him back to the OHL, right?
I think only on an emergency recall if there was something like that. Yeah.
But if Gooley was in Laval, I would say even him too for if they had an injury on defense. But yeah, I think the depth is going to be key this year. I think they address that, and like I said, bringing in a guy like Hoffman, bringing in Christian Dvorak, I think he's going to do wonders for the goal scoring. And, going back to what you said about Phil Deneau, yes, we're going to miss his defensive play. We're going to miss him in the dot. But I think bringing in Dvorak, and I think we'll see another big step from Suzuki. I think they're both going to be fine in the dot, and they're going to score a lot more than Deneau did. And I think that and I love Phil Deneau. And I thought he was easily one of our most key players during the playoff run, but the one criticism I think I had of him, he just could not score a lot.
Yeah.
For a top line center, and I think we addressed that. I think we have more goal scoring spread out. I would say maybe even top 9. I think the goal scoring spread should be pretty decent. I don't. If all goes well, I don't think we'll have much problem scoring.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, check out that video over there.